And good morning, everybody. Welcome. Hot Takes Goodman and Haertl. How are you, Bruce?
I'm good, Eric. How about you this Wednesday morning?
I'm good. Yesterday, we spent time on the show, talking about Deion Sanders and how he took his son Shedeur and Travis Hunter and retired their numbers immediately. I'm going to stop bitching about Deion Sanders. I'm going to stop bitching about, maybe some of the things that Shedeur does and says, like, when he played, he showed his watch and things like that. The guy all of them make great copy. They all make great news. And we should really thank them as members of the media because they always give us something to talk about, like the lead of the show today, as an example.
The lead is presented by Smokin' Dave's Barbecue. It is not just the best barbecue in town, it's one of the best restaurants in town. You can find Smokin' Dave's Barbecue in Denver, Lyons, Longmont, Estes Park, and Greeley.
If you're going to be watching the playoff games this weekend, talking about the Nuggets or Avs, you might want to check out the best sports book, the best sports bar in town. And while it's not a sports book where you can gamble, you walk in, you're going to see monitors all over the place, and you're going to feel like you're in a sports book. A bar is great when you walk in there, a sports bar specifically, and you see random friends there all the time, and you haven't called them and said, hey, do you want to meet here? And that's where they want to go. The Sportsbook Bar and Grill in the DTC, that was my original sports bar. Loved going there, great food. Then they opened one near my house in Highlands Ranch. The viewing experience is outstanding. They do more than just the four major sports. They're also big on soccer, rugby, UFC, but the menu is beyond upscale bar food. To use the word bar food in there is actually an insult to them. If you've never had their menu, you're going to walk in there and say, I would just come here for lunch. I would just come here for dinner. And every once in a while, I will pop in there around lunchtime, maybe to get some work done, and the place is packed. That's how great the food is there at Sportsbook Bar and Grill. By the way, the location in Highlands Ranch, they have this enormous LED wall. I have a feeling on Saturday at 1:30, it's going to be the Nuggets on that huge LED wall. Then we'll see what happens with the Avalanche this weekend. In the meantime, the draft is a little over a week away. And Travis Hunter has told NFL teams he wants to still play both sides of the ball in the NFL. In an interview with CBS Sports, Hunter says it isn't an issue for any club that he has met with so far to play wide receiver and cornerback. However, if a team did tell him he's only allowed to play either wide receiver or cornerback, Hunter says he has an option. And here's the quote: "It's never playing football again because I've been doing this my entire life." Pretty strong statement for a guy who hasn't even been drafted yet, telling NFL teams, this is the way it is, and if you don't do it my way, I'm just going to figuratively and literally take my ball and go home.
Well, it's bluster, and that's fine. That's part and parcel of the guy and the personality that's bigger than life and all the things.
No. Come on. It is the bluster and personality of Deion Sanders. It is the bluster and personality, in some ways, of Shedeur Sanders. That's not the way Travis Hunter talks. That's not who he is, and you and I can both agree on that. He is not a guy who generates headlines. This is a headline grabber.
Well, he opened his mouth and created a headline. So it is kind of who he is, at least now. It's never playing football again because I've been doing it my whole life. I love being on the football field. I mean, come on, stop. You're not going to walk away from the game. You're not. This is what your whole life has pointed towards. You're on an unbelievable trek towards becoming this. You've already taken it through the highest levels of college football. Now let's see what you can do in the NFL. But to think that he will play on both sides of the ball, it's how much he plays on both sides of the ball. Will he be a corner specifically and a wide receiver in various packages? Or will he be a wide receiver with sub packages on defense as a corner, cover corner, slot corner, whatever the case may be? He will be used that way. But the whole notion of taking 100 and some odd snaps a game on both sides is silly. This is the National Football League. And you've got to be, and you have to be available to your team. And trying to play every snap in the NFL makes no sense. The speed, the size, the anger that the game is played with, all of these things are totally different, even than anything Travis Hunter has experienced to this point.
Well, he said, I've done this my entire career. Well, high school players are different than pro players. College players are different than pro players. And I think you said it very well. The speed and the physicality of the game and the level of talent is tremendously different. I'm sure when he played more than a few games this year, he was going up against a cornerback who will never play in the Canadian Football League, more or less the National Football League. And then in high school, you can strip away even more talent from that. But do you think that when Travis asked other teams, the teams that interviewed him, hey, I want to be able to play both sides of the ball. Can I do that at the clip I did at Colorado? They just humored him and said yes. Full well knowing they probably weren't planning on doing it, just so that team doesn't grab headlines where Travis Hunter says he's not going to play for Team X because he won't be able to play both sides of the ball at a high level.
I suppose that's a possibility. We'll see how it all plays out. I know one thing that next Thursday, so what are we now, 8 days away, something like that, will come along, and we'll see how everyone's tone is on draft night. He's going to go early. He's going to go early in the draft. He's probably going to go to Cleveland, and we'll see how that plays out. But I would imagine everyone will start off playing very nicely. And this will be basically a memory. But you're not going to not play football. Come on. Let's just call it like it is. You're going to play football one way or the other. And I will say this, and you're probably not going to play football the way that you exactly want to play. It's a little different now. With all due respect, it's different now. And he is a seismic talent. He is a difference-making talent. And there probably should be some level of self-determination. But he's also a huge investment for a hundreds of millions of dollar, billion-dollar business.
Right.
Multi-billion-dollar worth of business. So they're not going to be told how things are going to play out. It's just a different world in the NFL, and you and I know that. But we've been around it all our lives.
Tell me if you buy this argument, because Deion Sanders is technically correct, because there are stats actually to back this up. Deion Sanders said about Travis Hunter playing offense and defense. He said, NFL game is a slower game than the college game, meaning a lot of teams in the NFL don't go no huddle. If they do, it doesn't happen the entire game. It happens a lot in college.
Mm-hmm.
So college, there is less rest per play by 4 seconds. Yeah, 4 seconds, I suppose, can add up. But
sure.
even though Deion is right, the players are bigger and stronger and faster too. I think that's the part he forgot to leave out. And if anybody should know that, it's Deion Sanders. When Deion Sanders played, I'm not going to say he was a physical freak for his time, But now there are a lot of guys who are physical freaks like him. The wide receivers, in terms of speed, athleticism, and skill, I don't know, are better than they were back then. In terms of talent, doesn't mean they were better. If I had my choice, I mean, pick a really good wide receiver in this league. Maybe not Justin Jefferson in terms of talent, but pick a really good wide receiver in the league. I'm asking you. Pick a really good wide receiver.
Amon St. Brown.
Okay. Would you rather have him or Steve Largent?
St. Brown.
Amon St. Brown. St. Brown is awesome. But Largent was so technically sound.
That is correct. Right.
His route running was unbelievable.
Yes, and the game does change. And to your point, and you're right, it is, and look, Deion Sanders was a freak of nature. And I mean, and I say that in the most awesome of ways. That is pure respect that I say that with. This guy's skill level, both in football, in multi-positions, and the game of baseball, was good enough for him to play at the highest level of his games. Think about that. It's remarkable. But the games change. The size, the speed of the game, the nutrition of the athletes, the way that they work 365 days of the year, all of these things conspire to make the challenge different. One of the big, the things that I read, the one thing that that people seem concerned about with Travis Hunter is his ability to handle the strain. Even though he's proven it to a large degree at Colorado, now all of a sudden you're playing just against bigger, stronger people. And how is he going to react to that? He's missed time. And you don't even think about it when you're playing both sides of the ball at Colorado. Didn't miss much time last year, got through last season in pretty good shape. But you've got to protect your investment. You're talking about a player that's going to be taken in the first 2 to 3 picks of the NFL draft. You're making a huge investment in this guy, and he needs to be a difference maker, certainly on one side of the ball, and he can still be a difference maker on the other side of the ball, but in a lessened capacity. That's all.
What I'm about to say to you is going to sound like a conspiracy theory that is just dancing in my head. But again, knowing Deion Sanders the way we know Deion Sanders, look at me. Oh, gee, look at my son. He's now got his number retired. Look at my, for lack of a better phrase, pseudo son. He's got his number retired. Not to suggest at all that Hunter should not have his number retired. Shedeur, I'm not as sure about, but I think everybody's problem, most people's problem, is the timing of it all.
Yeah.
You know, things that Deion has said, look at me. Would it surprise you at all, and I'm not suggesting this is true, but I found the report interesting, that the Giants organization, many in the Giants organization, are flying out to Boulder tomorrow.
Yeah.
To have one last workout with Shedeur Sanders. Again, complete conjecture on my part. You think Deion Sanders had a hand in orchestrating that? More look at me, more look at my son. Hey, come on out here. I'll host you at my house. Take you for dinner. Things like that. Like, I want more attention heaped onto my son. Or do you think the Giants really are that interested in taking Shedeur number 3? When all the reports that we've heard are it's going to be Abdul Carter. And I think many people would agree, not all, Shedeur Sanders is not worthy as a quarterback of the number 3 overall pick in the draft. Top 10, yes. But when you compare him to Abdul Carter, probably not.
I think that it would be silly to think, at least for me, that the Giants would pull most of their top administrative staff out for a visit to Boulder a week before the draft if they weren't kicking the tires and doing something or other that benefited their end game one way or the other. Now, I don't know what they're looking at.
You could have some pushing and convincing as well. You could have Deion Sanders, calling their GM, calling Brian Daboll. Well, what'd you think of my son? This, and this. We're kind of concerned about you know what? Why don't y'all come back out? And hopefully Shedeur will put those questions to rest.
Well, if there are any,
he's the type of guy that would do that.
Yeah, but my thought would be, it would be for the best interest of Shedeur and his chances to be picked high moving forward.
Correct.
I mean, he could have been. I suppose so. But I see it more as the Giants doing their due diligence than anything else. Look, they better make a pretty good pick, because I don't know if Russell Wilson and Jameis Winston are going to be the answers for them moving forward. I told you some of my trepidation about Shedeur being with the Giants, and it has to do with Russell Wilson and where Russell Wilson thinks he is right now as a quarterback in the league. Russell Wilson is not ready to just become a mentor. He's not ready to become the guy that starts to tutor the rising star. That just isn't in Russ's wheelhouse at this particular point. Not saying he wouldn't be a good teammate. I'm not saying that at all. I certainly think that Jameis Winston, who is, into that a second-tier quarterback thing in his career, he'd be great. No question about that. But I'm not sure that you put Shedeur Sanders and Russell Wilson in that kind of dynamic, because I certainly think Shedeur Sanders feels like, and more power to him, that he's a start from the first day kind of guy. And I don't know, you get two egos like that in the same place, even in a city like New York. Especially in a city of New York, because everything is magnified in the city of New York. Everything is bigger than it really even needs to be, because you're in New York City and it's the Giants. So I'm not sure about that. I know one thing. They have some questions about whatever it is. They need to get them answered. More power to them.
Coming up after the break, Gabriel Landeskog is back on the ice in an Avs sweater and practicing. We're talking about practice. In this case, it's a good thing we're talking about practice, because he could use that practice as the Avs head into the playoffs. The question is this: when you look at the greatest comebacks in playoff history from injury or illness, if, let's say, for the sake of argument, game one, Avs Stars, Gabe Landeskog scores the game-winning goal in overtime, where would that rank amongst the all-time greatest stories in an important game or moment in sports history? Because we got a list of great ones. Where would Gabe rank? That's next. Everyone has their favorite barbecue spot. Mine, Smokin' Dave's Barbecue and Brew. My favorites, slowly smoked ribs, smoked corned beef Reuben, smoked meatloaf with a portobello balsamic cream sauce. And don't forget about Smokin' Dave's 16-hour smoked brisket and pork with one of their 4 homemade barbecue sauces. Great sides, you bet. Barbecue beans made with pork and brisket and their southern corned bake. Man, you got to try it. Plus, they have amazing non-barbecue entrees on the menu. Go where I go, Smokin' Dave's Barbecue and Brew in North Denver.
Sasquatch and Wildcard Casinos in Blackhawk have another incredible promotion. They'll be giving away a Ford Bronco Raptor or nearly $30,000 in cash the weekend of May 23rd. Get finalist entries from 10 a.m. until midnight during their daily cash drawings every 45 minutes or by redeeming player points. And all daily cash drawings that don't get picked are eligible for a second chance drawing on Wednesdays, and that can turn into extra cash. Sasquatch and Wildcard Casinos, a family-owned casino that treats you like family.
Ever wondered where city and county fleet vehicles go when they retire? Now's your chance to find out and score big. Imagine driving away with a great deal on a reliable vehicle. For over 45 years, Roller Auction has been the trusted source for government fleet vehicles and equipment. Trucks, SUVs, sedans, and more, all selling to the highest bidder. Don't miss out. Visit roller.bid/hot takes to get auction updates today. Your next vehicle could be just a click away.
Everyone has their favorite sports bar. Mine, the Sportsbook Bar and Grill in Highlands Ranch in the DTC. Both locations are everything a sports bar should be. An upscale menu with 12 different burgers, outstanding wings, and my favorite, the Philly cheesesteak egg rolls. They've got every game on the NFL Sunday Ticket, MLB Extra Innings, NHL Center Ice, NBA League Pass, plus soccer, rugby, and UFC. Sportsbook is a hangout bar or great for private parties. The Sportsbook Bar and Grill in Highlands Ranch, the DTC, and coming soon to Parker. They are the sports bar. Takes with Goodman Haertl. Gabe Landeskog is expected to be on the ice for the playoffs this weekend, something that has been 3 years in the making. With that, if Landeskog only plays, let's call it 80%, and do you think that's generously high, 80% of his capabilities, or would you go a little bit lower?
Are we talking 80% of his previous capabilities?
Yeah. Would that be considered conservative? Would you be cool with that? Happy with that?
Yeah, I think so. I think I probably would. I mean, that if you've got that as a guarantee, that puts him on a line somewhere on this hockey club, right? Third line. Yeah. You add that kind of talent, experience, and leadership. It makes that line better, and thus, by transfer, makes your team better. So, yeah, I can see it happening.
Do you think that when he opts on the ice, let's say it's 80% of what he was, do you think right off the hop that could give a jolt to this Avalanche team, like Willis Reed returning for Game 7 of the 1970 NBA Finals, when Reed had a torn thigh muscle and then scored a couple of buckets and then left for the rest of the game? Do you think do you think you can get that type of jolt right off the hop, Game 1, just with Landeskog being on the ice?
I think the first jolt, and probably the most important one, is the emotional jolt. Is the look at this guy. Look, he's here.
That's what I mean.
Well,
yes, he scored 4 points. It's of the box score. I'm talking about emotional only, because that's all there is.
Well, I mean, he had a goal and 2 assists in 2 games with the Eagles. So, I mean, eventually, at some point, it has to be his play on the ice, doesn't it? I mean, as you move forward in this thing, yes, it's going to have to be his play on the ice.
First, I'm not explaining that question. Willis Reed played for like 5 minutes.
Yeah.
I'm talking about emotional only, yes. Throughout the course of a playoff series, he has to produce. I'm talking immediately. Game 7, here comes Willis Reed hobbling onto the floor. Here comes Gabriel Landeskog, walking on skates onto the ice. Well, could that give them a huge jolt Game 1?
Yes, no question about it. Because Gabe Landeskog is totally unique in his story. His backstory is 3 years in the making. The last time that he was on the ice with the Avs, he was hoisting the cup in 2022. Here we are, 3 years later. That makes him different than anyone. The greatest moment of a player coming back in a very difficult physical situation is Kirk Gibson at the World Series against Dennis Eckersley and the walk-off home run.
That's the greatest.
It was the greatest for me. And I remember the Willis Reed. I remember Willis Reed. I remember that moment. I remember him walking back through the darkened corridor at Madison Square Garden and the whole 9 yards. I mean, I remember that. To me, the Kirk Gibson home run was the best.
Willis Reed isn't even top 10.
Okay.
Willis Reed isn't top 10.
Well, Gabe Landeskog.
Greatest comeback.
Yeah, but it was a cool moment. And to our point earlier, it happened. It was a New York moment, so it makes it even bigger. But we still think about it all these years later, right? I mean, what are we now? We're 30, we're 50, 55 years ago. We're talking about that. You still think about Willis Reed. It's still top of mind. It may not be top 10. This one would be different because of the time that has passed.
Right. As far as Landeskog wearing the captain center, wearing the captain jersey, for lack of a better phrase, how much staying power does that have? And how much influence will that have throughout the entire playoffs, no matter how long they last? I am not suggesting what I'm about to say would happen if Gabe Landeskog was the captain of the team. There's a part of me that wonders if Gabe wouldn't have put his arm around Val Nichushkin and said, "What are you doing? What are you doing to yourself? You're hurting the team. You're hurting yourself. What are you doing?" I'm not suggesting Gabriel Landeskog wearing that C would have prevented Nichushkin missing time during the playoffs, but Landeskog has that and is that voice, a voice that does not resonate the same with anybody else in that Avalanche locker room.
The C has never been transferred. It remains his letter on that sweater. He is the captain of this club 3 years later after missing that element of his career. They have not done anything. They've done it with the A, with the assistants, right? They have not done it with the C. The captain of that team is still Gabriel Landeskog, who presumably will be playing for the Colorado Avalanche in the playoffs 3 years after he last played. They kept that seat warm for him, Eric, for 3 years. That's how important he was, not only as a physical presence for this team, but as an emotional presence for this team. And let's not be silly and forget this too. He was also a financial presence for this team. You're talking about a guy that's in the $6 to $7 million range. When you activate him has a lot to do with when that starts to kick in against the cap for the Avs. And so you got to be careful about that and how you do things. So there were all kinds of considerations that you had to balance, but you never took the C away from Gabe Landeskog. To me, that speaks volumes, not only about what the franchise and the administration of the franchise thinks of him, but more importantly, what his teammates in that locker room think of him.
So we talked about briefly in this segment, great sports moments in playoff history, major moments in sports history. Kerry Strug, major moment, clearly not a playoff. With that, is it even fair to compare what Landeskog is doing to what the others did? And we'll go through the list, considering they were injured when those moments happened. And Landeskog technically is not injured.
Totally.
So let's say Landeskog, game one, comes out and scores a hat trick. Game one against the Stars.
Wow.
Do you now put him in that category of, I don't know, Michael Jordan, 1997, flu game, comes out and scores 38 points? Are they now in the same category?
I don't know if they're in the same category because of the passage of time, because of the ones that we think about happened in the moment. So there's an injury and you overcome the injury almost in the moment, right? So, I mean, Jordan plays through the flu game. Gibson limps to the plate. Willis Reed comes from out of the shadows, but they had been they were in a current situation. The thing that has made this different with Landeskog is, and it would have to be viewed through a different prism, or certainly lens.
Can I give you a different prism? Let me give you a different prism.
Yeah.
Okay. What would be more so? Your tops is Kirk Gibson, who, by the way, just to set the table with what was going on with Kirk Gibson, wasn't expected to play game one of the 98 World Series between the Dodgers and A's. He was suffering from 2 injured legs and a stomach virus. Comes to the plate. Dodgers are down 4-3 in the 9th inning. Gibson comes in as a pinch hitter, facing Dennis Eckersley, the best closer in the game.
Right.
Pops off a 2-run ding-dong. Game's over.
Walk off.
So let's put it in these. Let's put it through this lens, as you said. Depends on what lens you look through it in. What would be more difficult? Doing what Gibson did in that moment, bottom of the 9th, with those injuries, would that be more difficult, or rehabbing for 3 years and then coming out and getting a hat trick in your first game?
It would be rehabbing. That's much more. And it's much more because of the challenges of getting back onto the ice, just literally getting back on the ice. Yeah. But I mean, that's a big ask. You're telling me that he's going to score a hat trick. For me, him getting on the ice is immense in a playoff game.
In order to be mentioned in that group, you have to have a moment significant. So what would be more difficult? Michael Jordan scoring 33 with the stomach flu and throwing up before the game, or rehabbing for 3 years and scoring a hat trick?
Well, it's rehabbing for 3 years and scoring a hat trick. I mean, and frankly, it's not even close, because you're asking an athlete to continue to pursue a dream against the steepest of odds. Let's not forget, he had multiple surgeries to correct things in his knee and his foot and whatever, all of these situations. He had to reinvent the way he skated.
Yeah.
He had to reinvent who he was as an athlete. He literally had to go back to square one and start again. So we're comparing what happened in a couple of days' time, for instance, you don't minimize. It's the stuff of lore, right? I mean, the flu game for Jordan is rightfully the stuff of lore. But it's totally different than a player going to work every day for 3 years to chase the dream of playing again.
So maybe now let's dial it down for a minute. A hat trick is unusual for any player, specifically in the playoffs. So let's scale it back for a second, because I would agree with you that rehabbing for 3 years on an injury that had never been come back for before in the sport is significant enough. Then doing a hat trick, I mean, you just added 5,000 pounds of icing onto that cake.
Right.
So give me something realistic that might make it a conversation. A goal and assist. What would it be? Game winning. How about game winning goal? Will that level the playing field a little bit more?
I suppose it probably would, but Eric, I don't mean I don't mean to be silly about this.
Yeah.
Him getting to the ice, him skating out onto the ice, wearing the jersey as a part of a playoff push for a Stanley Cup capable team, to me is going to be emotional. It is going to be emotional. I was so excited for him last weekend up in Loveland, and it was a really cool moment. I think it's going to be even more impactful to see him coming on the ice with his mates. And when the Avs take the ice in Dallas, if indeed he's activated for that game, we'll wait and see. But if he's out there, I mean, my goodness, just that alone to me would move this way ahead of a lot of things in the line. Now, to give anything else would be part of that frosting that you're talking about, an assist, a goal, whatever the case may be. Great.
Just for fun, let's run through this list of
Go
greatest
for it.
moments, of great heroics in a moment of weakness. Talked about Willis Reed. Surprised you didn't bring up Kurt Schilling, Game 6 of the ALCS.
Yeah.
No? Torn tendon in his ankle went 7 innings. That's fine.
I mean,
you're the Red Sox
the
fan.
bloody sock,
you
the bloody sock. I mean, I get it. I mean, the bloody. I'm glad that he did it. Let me say that.
It was more than a bloody sock. They fixed a torn tendon. It's not like he had a pimple and it exploded. He had a torn tendon. People tend to look at, oh, his sock was bloody. Maybe he spilled some Hawaiian punch on it. Or, maybe he cut his ankle shaving. He had a torn tendon.
Do you think he still has the sock, by the way? Because the sock would have that stain in perpetuity.
I don't know. I don't know. We talked about Michael Jordan, Kirk Gibson. Kerry Strug, to me, is one of the most heroic moments of all time.
It is.
But now let's talk about real serious injuries. Not to say Kerry Strug did not have one. Jack Youngblood played with a broken leg in the playoffs. A lot of people don't even remember this, and I don't because I wasn't around. I think you were, though. Gordie Howe had a slap shot in the Stanley Cup final that broke Bobby Bond's leg. He was taken off the ice on a stretcher, had it taped backed up, and he came back and scored the game-winning goal. But to me, there's number one, and then there's the rest. Because even when you talk about Landeskog coming back after 3 years, this to me is one of the most amazing sports moments I ever witnessed, and I don't think I'll ever witness this ever again. And we don't have to go back very far. When Tiger Woods won the U.S. Open, a torn ligament in his left knee, double stress fracture in his left leg, he went to a 18-hole playoff plus an extra hole. He golfed 91 holes and won the U.S. Open with a torn knee ligament and a broken leg, or partially broken leg, and won the U.S. Open. That's the only thing that I can think of that could possibly rival Gabe Landeskog coming back.
Yeah, and
by the way, he wasn't riding in a cart either. He walked the whole damn thing.
Yeah, absolutely. Of course, and that's what makes it unbelievable. But all of those things, and I agree with you, are remarkable, but they were remarkable in a moment or in a period of time, 4 or 5 days for Tiger Woods.
No. Gary Strug was a moment. Michael Jordan was a moment. Kirk Gibson was a moment. Bobby Bond was a moment. Jack Youngblood was a moment. This was 5 days of golfing. And
so 5 days,
miles and miles and miles.
Right. So 5 days compared to 3 years. For me, this is a totally different kind of dynamic. And you just talked about it. And the reason it makes it a totally different dynamic is because he's coming back from an injury that there had been no precedent for anyone coming back from this injury when he started out down this road.
Yep.
Absolutely no precedent for it whatsoever.
Right.
So it makes it different. It doesn't make any of the other ones that we're comparing it to less heroic. I'm not saying that. I love the moments that are like that. They're absolutely incredible. This one's different. And it's the 3 years.
I'll just say this. Of the entire list, there's Tiger Woods, and then there's everything else. I don't think another human being could win the U.S. Open walking and playing like he did to win it. Nobody.
I will give
and I'm not saying that somebody can score 38 points in the NBA Finals with the stomach flu either. Or somebody could walk up with all that pressure in Game 1 of the World Series and hit a home run. But to your point, the longevity of it, 5 days, oh my God, he played 91 holes.
Yeah, you're right. I will give you one.
Don't forget, the U.S. Open is 72 holes.
Right.
He played a playoff, 18-hole playoff, and an extra hole to boot.
There is one other that I can think of that would at least kind of approximate Gabe Landeskog's challenge, and that was Ben Hogan. Ben Hogan was in the car wreck and then came back like 2 years later and won the Open or the Masters. I can't remember exactly which one it was.
Right.
But that is a guy who, and that was in the 40s. So, I mean, you're talking about a guy that didn't have, I mean, he had what was at his disposal in terms of medical technology at that time, certainly would be different than now. But that's about the only one that I can really see where he comes all the way back to be at the top of his game after a literally crippling car wreck that he had. Go get him, Gabe Landeskog. Go get him. You've got an entire city. I think you've got an entire league and an entire sports nation behind you, not to mention the country of Sweden. It's a remarkable story for a guy who is so well loved and respected. And Eric, if this guy puts a tally up or gets an assist, my God, are you kidding me? That would be more than you could possibly ask for.
You know what? If he goes here, attention all Hollywood producers. If for some reason this guy wins the Conn Smythe Trophy, you've got yourself a movie. With that was Hot Takes. This is Hot Takes. Goodman and Haertl. Make it a great morning.